Something different today, viewers, apart from the engine running. I've got a very nice little Saito 19 radial. I'm going to make a collector ring exhaust for it, and I'm going to use bits and pieces that might surprise you. Something that anybody could make with a little bit of workshop skill and knowledge, and you'll find it very effective and very rewarding. I'll show you now some of the pieces on the bench that I'm going to use for making this up. Our first consideration is some flexible tubing. This is a reasonably standard item now in various model supplies and various outlets. You can find it on the internet. Not very hard to buy. I'm not giving you any sizes because it depends on the engine that you're going to make your ring for as to what size you use. But this size that I've selected here is suitable for the ring I'm going to make for the little Saito 19. You might find you'll also need some K&S tubing to use as a filler for the next part of the bits and pieces for all the joining. Cutting the tubing, that convoluted tubing, I find is best done with a Dremel, with the Dremel cut-off wheel. These are the flexible ones, lock on, quite safe. Make sure you use a pair of safety glasses, very important. Alright, I'll show you the rest of the bits now. Right, this is the major piece that made the job a lot easier for me to design. And as you can see, they're just ordinary plumber's capillary fittings for water pipe. Again, available in a range of sizes. You select the size to suit your particular project. These ones here, these are the 15mm for common water pipe, well and truly marked, as you can see, 90-degree bends and various curves and tees and so forth. And one of the beauties of these now, contrary to what they were like many years ago when they were quite heavy cast brass, these are super light. They're quite thin in section. As you can see, there's not much to them, and they've also shortened them. Now these are going to be perfect for the job we're going to do. You'll need headers to connect your collector ring exhaust to the headers in the engine. I've made mine myself. These are the little sleeve nuts that I've made up, but these are available as a spare part from Saito if you don't have the facilities for making them. And the brass piece I've just machined out of solid. Not a great job to do these. This one here, that's got a plug ring, just an ordinary glow plug or spark plug ring, silver brazed on the end. And this one here, I just got a bit of thick copper wire, brazed it on the end, and then just put it in the pedestal drill and shaped it up with a file. This one here is a bit of copper tubing, which I flared out with a simple flaring tool, and again put in the pedestal drill, bored it down onto the file, and then a bit of sandpaper to square the end off. You can buy these fittings from Saito. These are Saito single length extension exhaust. This might be the easiest way to go if you don't have the facilities to make the pieces up. Just buy 3 of these, cut them off to the length you want, strip the paint off, and then you've got it. There's the little sleeve nut. Everything's ready to go for your header. A bit of calculation using Pythagoras or your little calculator. Work out the diameter you want. Remember, diameter equals pi d, whatever the diameter is. That gives you the circumference or the you want of the whole ring. And then you can work out, as I've roughly written out there, you can work out the length of the segments. I worked it all out, checked it all out before I cut it, measured it again, checked again, and this is my little kit of pieces ready to go. You'll notice the rings there, these rings here, they're to make up the difference in the diameter of the flexible tubing and the capillary fitting, so that they're just a slide-in fit with a little bit of tolerance, because we're going to be silver brazing, and you need a little bit of room for the silver brazing to go in. All very, very nice and easy to do. Get it all planned up, make your kit, and start assembling. You'll need a brazing tool. When you get around to doing your silver soldering, if you're a bit concerned about the silver brazing material flowing down over areas where you don't want it, you can use these correcting fluids, whiteout, two different types here. One's a quick dry one, but several brands of those. That, as you see, I've painted it around that T-fitting there on the edges. Where the whiteout is, there's no silver brazing. The silver brazing won't run onto that whiteout, and it'll withstand incredible heat. There's no problems there. It's a very good masking. I'm not too concerned about it with my job, because I'm going to be spray painting it when it's all finished, and painting it black, but I'm also a bit judicious with the use of silver brazing. I don't like to waste the rod, so it won't be running over the edges. But it does, any job you're doing with silver brazing, it does help quite a lot. And to get this whiteout off the job when you're finished, just to soak in a bit of a weak solution of caustic soda will clean it off quite well. And as far as holding the various bits and pieces, these little helping hand, freely available model business and so forth, you can make your own up. This is one that was made up years ago. It's an old battery, actually, an old telephone battery, I think it is, from way back, but I've used this one for many years. It'll hold the job quite nicely, and the grip with the little alligator clip there doesn't act as a heat sink. Quite a good way of holding the jobs. There's nothing worse than trying to set a job up when you're silver brazing. It starts to move, you inadvertently grab it, and of course it's red hot, burnt fingers. This is one way you might consider for doing your setup. Alright, we'll start doing some silver brazing in the next episode. Well, I've brazed up my 3 headers. They're all ready for the rest of the assembly. I'd like you to take note of the wire around the top, just a bit of thin fused wire holding those sleeve nuts up. Just the wire's just bent over the top, because you certainly don't want them sliding down and getting tangled up with the silver brazing. These have been partly cleaned. They'll clean up a lot more later, but they're cleaned up ready for the next silver brazing job, which will be the actual ring sections, all ready to go. So back to the bench. After you've made your T-piece headers, you need to silver braze the flex tube in, which makes up the ring. Now, you've already got a silver braze joint in the T-piece. If you apply too much heat, which you shouldn't do, but to prevent accidents, you've got to isolate or heat sink that joint. Now, there are various ways of doing this. The first one here, I've rolled up about 10 or 12 layers of alfoil into a strip and wrap that around the joint. Now, the aluminium acts as a very good heat sink, and that'll help prevent the first joint from undoing with the heat. The second one here, I've used aluminium wire, just soft aluminium wire, just some that I had on hand. I've wrapped that around. That'll add the heat sink qualities to that particular joint if you want to use that method. And the middle one here, this blue compound, it's actually for that purpose. It's a blue fibrous-y type putty you can get from welding supplies to act as a heat sink. It's mixed with water, it's quite safe, and you just wrap it around like plasticine, heat away, and once you're finished with it, you can put it back in the container and mix it up with water, so it's reusable. It's all ready to go. So I'm going to start doing my ring construction now, brazing the first one in before I start doing the forming. Let's go. If you want the final outlet of your exhaust pointing straight down around the centre line of the engine, you'll have to adjust where you cut your bottom piece of flexible tubing, because the exhaust pipes aren't equal from the bottom position. One's on top of a cylinder, one's underneath the cylinder. You cut one piece a bit shorter, one piece a bit longer. You can see that I've cut mine that way. This way, when it's set up in the engine, that outlet pipe, the brass pipe there, is going to be vertically down. You can select how you want it, what you want to do with it. For the final assembly, you'll find the job is a lot easier when it's done with the unit on the engine in its position. Otherwise you're going to have a lot of trouble later on trying to line up your outlets with your exhaust on your engine. Don't worry too much about the shape at this stage. Once it's all cleaned up, we can pull it all around so it looks a bit more circular. But at this stage I know for sure that when I undo those headers, clean it up, they're going to go back in again without any great problems. Now the next job is a bit of a clean up before I paint it, and we do this with a solution of caustic soda, which cleans off all the flux residue from the silver brazing, cleans the job up very nicely, gets it ready for painting, in my case matte black.